Se vuol parlare figlio con figlio, se vuol parlare signor con figlio, il chitarrino le suonerò, il chitarrino le suonerò, sì, le suonerò, sì, le suonerò.
Hello, everyone, and hello to you on Tuesday Conversation with Friends. Today, I have Valerian Ruminski with me, who is an internationally known opera singer who have sung with companies like the Metropolitan Opera and who owns and runs his own opera company up in Buffalo and with an incredibly interesting story. So, without further ado, why don't you tell us a little bit about you for those people who don't know who you are?
Hello, everybody. Glad you're with us. My name is Valerian Ruminski, and I was born in Buffalo, New York, born and raised. And I started my singing. I realized I could sing when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and they used to ask me to sing on the school bus for everybody. And in kindergarten, they'd have extra time at the end of the day. The teacher would say, "Let's listen to him sing something." I sang for the St. Paul's Episcopal Choir, men and boys choir, when I was at 10 years old, and then I went to a Jesuit high school and sang in the choir there. And the choir teacher took me aside and said, "You have a real voice,
Mm.
and you should be singing professionally. I encourage you to pursue a music
Wow.
career." So I got a degree in voice at the university, and I was accepted, lucky enough, privileged enough to be accepted at the Academy of Vocal Arts
Yes.
in Philadelphia, which is one of the best opera training schools in the world. And
Absolutely.
and then on the side, when I was in my teens, in those tween years, I really wanted to be a pop singer,
Mhm.
and I tried. I was in some bands and things like that, and I was not successful because nobody wants to hear a bass singing songs that all the tenors sing,
Right.
because most all pop singers are tenors. But now, over the past year with the pandemic, I've produced my first pop album,
I
and I'm
saw that.
producing my second pop album, and I'm getting good reviews. And so I'm trying to break into a different profession on the side as a hobby. But my opera career is still going strong, and so is the company in Buffalo.
I think there's something that's really shifted in the performing in the whole music and performing industry is with something's um, like YouTube becoming available, we have a lot more freedom to express who we are and use our own voices. And I think that's where you can produce your own album. You don't have to worry about if you have somebody who's going to put you in a studio to produce an album and all that stuff. And one thing that I have really come to kind of appreciate about you is you're your own person. You always do things your own way, even if you get in trouble. And tell us a little bit about that part of who you are.
Uh, I mean, a lot of it
That
is,
look on your face, right?
yeah, a lot of it is that if I knew some of the things that were going to happen, I probably would have shut my mouth. But yeah, I've been outspoken, and I think it's just because I have a rebellious nature. I guess I see the truth, and when I see the truth is being trampled, I speak about it. But a lot of times, it's also that you have to have an inner censor. But I think it's important that we don't walk around like robots. I was a sociology major when I was in college, and I was very aware of politics. And then when I decided to be an opera singer, I sort of put myself into a bubble because a lot of opera singers, they won't take political stand on anything because they're afraid that it's going to hurt your career, and the opera career is very fragile. It's like any other performing art, where if you get controversial, there's a chance that the people who hire and fire are not going to hire you.
Right, right.
So sometimes you gotta, be careful if you really want to. If you've got a wife and children and all that, and you have a career, you have to put food on the table, and you got to pay for the mortgage.
Hmm.
A lot of time you got to shut your mouth and you got to just do your job. But the thing is, I've really never been married, and I don't have any children. So any pain and suffering that I bring upon is brought upon myself, and I'm not hurting anybody else. I'm just hurting myself. So I guess that's part of it, is that I have not had to be providing for anybody else. So I hurt my career once or twice, by saying this or saying that. But the problem is, you really don't know what's expected of you. You go to an opera house and you work for a month, and sometimes you're around a lot of liberal people.
Right.
And if you say something conservative, they don't want to hire you again. And then you go to another opera house and they're all conservative, and you say something liberal, and they don't want to hire you again.
So
And
I
so
guess
you
that's
learn
why that's
you learn
why
to shut your mouth then, because you don't know whether you're talking to somebody who's liberal or conservative or what it is.
right.
Best just to be neutral on the whole thing.
I think that's
So
why it's like the same rule for dinner conversations: no religions and no politics, right?
yeah, but the problem is that in the day we live in, there's an 800-pound gorilla sitting at the table with us.
That's true. That's
And
very
it's very
true.
hard not to say something, because it's what everybody's talking about. It's the most important thing. And of course, to be socially conscious about what's affecting us. I mean, we're artists.
Hmm.
We can't function if we're full of anxiety and miserable, and we have to. I mean, that's what being an artist is. You allow your passion to inform what you're doing,
Right.
and if you're worrying. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are artists who are very depressed, who
Mm.
are very concerned, and ignorance is bliss. If you are ignorant to the whole thing and you don't read about it and you're in denial and you don't want to see anything, okay, that's fine. But if you're people like we are, where you're an artist and you are aware, and you have to be aware, because you're on stage, you're portraying people, you're portraying characters, you're supposed to be educated. And
Right.
if you're aware, then you're also subjecting yourself to the pains and to the you know to the anger and horror that is around us, and it affects you.
Yes, it does.
So
Yes, it does. I think I believe you and I studied with the same teacher at different times, Bill Schumann. And I remember during the lessons, and he was very big on this concept. You cannot frighten an artist. When an artist is frightened, he or she cannot sing. So during the lessons, he's very protective of the student's psyche, and that needs to be extended outside of the laboratory, the studio environment. And so, which kind of leads me to the question of what inspired you and what carried you from being a pure performer to being an administrator, because you started your own opera company up in Buffalo.
hmm
That's a,
uh,
that is not the same as being an artist. There's a lot more to it now.
well, it was half opportunity and half inspiration,
Mhm.
or legacy. I'd say legacy more
Okay.
than inspiration, because my teacher that from college that got me going and took me to AVA and got me to audition for AVA and shaped me. He was the teacher that took me from being uh, something to being something decent.
I understand.
Bill Schumann took me from being something decent to being something very good.
Hmm.
The teachers can take you from nothing to something, and then from something to something good.
Right.
So I felt a debt of gratitude towards Dr. Burgess at the university, who taught me, and who was a Curtis graduate, and who knew Chris Makatsaurus at AVA from the 60s,
Right.
and knew that it was the place for me to be. So the opera company in Buffalo was always a touch and go affair.
Hmm.
For many years, it was around, and finally they ran out of money, and it kind of crashed and burned. And my teacher got a negative reputation because of it. And it was never his fault, really. It was the forces that were around him. So I always felt it was my legacy to pick up where he left off, because there was no real professional opera company in Buffalo
Hmm.
after he dropped the company, after it was ended. It ended in a very negative, crash and burn, a lot of money owed and all that. So I wanted to do it. And the second part of it is, of course, there was no other opera company. So it's not like I was fighting some kind of you know,
Big
I
competitions.
wasn't creating the second tiny little opera company that was fighting. No, there was no other opera company. So
Hmm.
there was an opportunity. We were going to be the only band in town. So I looked at it like, okay, I can do this, and I don't have to fight City Hall in order to make it a reality, because any opera is going to be the opera
Right,
in
right.
town. So the main thing was, and this is how it is with most companies, is finding a decent theater to get married to
Mm,
have the relationship with a theater that is amicable, where they're willing to bend over backwards a little bit to make it a reality.
hmm.
And I had a pretty decent relationship for 7 years with the theater that we got into, which was an 1,100 seat
Hmm.
old movie theater in the suburbs that was built in 1926, the Riviera Theater. But as management changed, the attitudes towards us being in the in the house changed, and then eventually we were not brought back after our eighth season
Oh.
because the guy didn't care about the guy who brought me in there. He wanted opera,
Hmm.
and he was nice to work with. I didn't have to fight with him.
Hmm.
And then it's a matter of uh, they wanted me there, but then they never wanted to. It's sort of like a husband who wears a wedding ring but takes it off when he goes to a bar.
Oh dear. I think it's opera is a tricky art form, and being an opera singer myself, I think opera is something that sometimes people automatically feel they don't relate to it, which goes back to I really think at the end of the day, making that connection is going back to the humanness, the human stories of the performers, the human stories of the originators, the composers, the librettists, the people, even the people who design the sets. And going back to the stories of the characters and why are they human and how do we create an opportunity to connect with the audience as human to human versus this giant grand art form that's detached. And I don't think it necessarily is in being innovative in the staging, or we now change the setting of being in Paris and for La Boheme to being in this other place. I don't think it's necessarily that, because I think all of that is in the effort of making that connection, right? So, so now, what was the biggest challenge for you to create that connection with people who may or may not be opera goers? Because
Well,
you have to create audience besides just the people who have been going.
I think the simplest way
Mm,
to generate that kind of recognition of the humanity
mm,
of what they're experiencing for the audience is to get the singers that most can convey in the best way the art form.
mm,
You know, when you hear Callas or you hear Corelli or you hear Siepi or Pinza, I have
right,
a preference for bassos, singing. Their technique is so pure and the voice is so pure that's when you cry.
right,
When you cry, you feel the humanity when Pavarotti hits that high note. Why? Because you're hearing the essence of his humanity,
right,
because he's gotten the technique out of the way. The
right.
problem with the other operas, you can have the most beautiful production in the world, and then if you scrimp and save and get local singers who don't have the technical ability to be able to convey what Mr. Puccini or what Mr. Mozart has written, the audience is going to sit there and they're going to, like, I don't want to hear this person. This
Mhm,
person is a fake opera singer. This person's trying to sing opera. But when I hire people, I make sure I'm getting those singers that are touching me, because
mhm.
they got it. They
So
know how to
now,
sing.
now
They're
one of the
exposing their humanity through the
right,
voice.
right. So now when you see us, um, let me rephrase that, because one of the things I found that you have done in your publicity and the things you send out is you really allow yourself to be more than just the opera singer when you are going through, when you share yourself with people, and it's sometimes it can be very vulnerable. Can we talk a little bit about vulnerability and what's personal?
Well, I mean, the vulnerability, and you have to be honest about it. It's like I'm not doing it because I'm trying to get something out of it. I mean, I think it's just my nature to try to be to be real. If you expose yourself, uh, somebody could make fun of you, but so what? So let them. It doesn't affect me. Really. I mean, if I tell 100 people my story, and five of them think I'm a jerk, okay, that's your opinion. I'm comfortable talking about my personal life and all that because I feel if I'm sharing with the patrons and I'm sharing with the people who attend my shows,
Mhm.
that it's a great reason for them to continue to come to the shows because they're going to appreciate my honesty.
Right.
Um, I'm happy to share with people because I get feedback,
Hmm.
and then they share with me because they see that I'm being open, and so they're open. I just visited this morning. All week this week, I've been visiting patrons.
Hmm.
I was having coffee this morning with two patrons. They've been around for 10 years. They
I,
love the fact I stopped over. They're talking about current affairs. They gave me a container of borscht that they cooked. I got it on the floor right here.
that's
And
wonderful.
yeah, and I got another person that invited me over later. And these are donors, these are
Right.
patrons, but I'm not going to see them because I want them to give me money.
Or
It's nice
soup.
that,
Right.
yeah, it's nice that they give me money. But the thing is, it's the opposite. It's like I'm seeing them because I enjoy their company and because I don't know. A lot of people I like talking about myself. I'm not self-centered, but I'm happy to share with
Hmm.
people these things, and they want to know. And
Right.
another part of it too is that I run this company sort of part time,
Right.
and
Right.
I live out of state now.
Right.
So
You're
I'm
living in my
reassuring
hometown.
everybody. Yeah,
Right.
I'm reassuring everybody that I can run this company with one hand tied behind my back and one eye closed, and from California or from Denmark if
Right.
need be. Last year I was in Denmark for 5 months singing with the Danish National, and I ran the opera company. I must have raised $20,000 when I was in Denmark,
Right.
making phone calls and calling, emailing people, and people were making PayPal donations and they were sending checks. And I have an intern here in Buffalo, and if I tell him to go to the storage and go to the mail, he goes and picks up the checks and puts them in the bank. So I mean, I hate to talk about money, but really, opera doesn't work without money. It is
That's
an
right.
expensive art
Right.
form. Every part of it is expensive. There's a lot of art forms. I mean, it's nice with the internet because things are cheaper and you can do things in a cheaper fashion.
Hmm.
But if you're really running an opera company where you've got a set on the stage and an orchestra in the pit, you've got to raise money. And the only way to
Right.
raise money is to talk to people and to have a
Right.
sense of community. Nobody wants to give you money for opera. I mean, it's not like giving money to the Muscular Dystrophy Foundation where we got a kid in a wheelchair. Our poster child is a big fat guy in a tuxedo. So that's not a great reason to give money, you know. But it is when people realize that they're participating in the culture of the community.
Right. So now, obviously, in order to really be vulnerable and be an artist, we have to be a person, not just a artist, not just be, all of that is part of who a person is, right? So tell us a little bit about the person. That's when you're not um, I don't want to say when you're not being the artist because I think that's 24/7. You never really stop. That is a huge part of who you are. But what about other parts of who you are? Other parts of who you are outside of the running the opera company, outside of the performing? Because when you're performing with Danish National Opera, you're not the same person as when you're running your own company because that's very different aspects of who you are. And there are other even bigger spectrums outside that helps you to be able to be both of those people, right? But there's more. Tell us a little bit about this more.
Well, I think our whole lives what we're doing is we're trying to get to the place where we can have all the plates spinning.
Hmm.
It takes a couple decades to get the plates spinning, and then you get to this place where you're on the plateau. That's
Hmm.
where I am now.
Okay.
I'm 53 years old. I got it all. It's all moving. It's all spinning. right now. The company is going into a great new phase. My career is going into a great new phase. So I think that the thing that motivates me the most is what I started. I mean, that's where the momentum came back in when I was a kid.
Hmm.
It's about the singing. It's just about the voice. It's about,
Right.
yes, I have a personal life. I guess I've given my personal life a lot of short shrift over the years. I don't have any children. That's a sort of a little bittersweet that I don't. I'd still like to have, even though I'm 53. I'd still like to have, but if it's not in the cards, it's not in the cards. But now I told you earlier that I went to Ancestry, and
Hmm.
I got, it took 5 years, but I got connected finally with my birth father and my birth mother, and
Okay, so
I've
let's go
been,
a little further back. So you were adopted.
I was adopted,
Hmm.
and my adopted father died when I was 10,
Oh,
and
wow.
uh, my adopted mother died about 8 years ago of cancer.
Well,
So I've been an orphan.
didn't you go back to Buffalo initially and started the company so you could be near her and take care of her as part of the reason?
Well, yeah, sure. So she got cancer back in 2011,
Mm.
uh, 2010, and was already starting the opera company, but that was a bigger incentive for me to stay closer to home. And I was lucky enough for that the Toronto Opera hired me
Mhm.
because that was a commute.
Right?
I was able to go back and forth to Toronto every couple of days, so
Hmm.
and I earned good money
Right.
up there. So I was able to go back and forth over the border and be with her, and then be working in Toronto. And she passed 1 year after that contract finished.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, I started the company partially because I needed to be closer to home because I'm an only child and she was dying, so I needed to be there. And I went through that experience, and I wonder how any child can even function after if they don't do that, if they don't do what is they're responsible
Mm.
for. It's required. Your parents
Right.
sacrificed for you. I couldn't imagine how I would feel if I had skipped that. If I had, been irresponsible and said, I'll let the nurse take care of her or something. I was there when she died.
Right.
So I feel good about that. But at the same time, my uncle and my mother were open about the fact that they were okay with me finding my birth parents.
Ah.
So my mother started giving me not contact, but uh, information
Clues.
about my adoption that
Mm.
she was not willing to do earlier. Like when she was dying, she felt, okay, I'll tell him. And so it took 7 or 8 years, but
Wow.
this year, in this year of catastrophe and virus, good things happen. I got a phone call, and then I uploaded my DNA, and I found my father in June, and I came back to Buffalo for a week to meet him. And now this week, I'm back for a week to meet my mother.
Wow, it gives me chills.
To
Wow.
And I
That's
have
a big
brothers and
thing.
sisters. I've been alone for my whole life. Now I have two brothers, three sisters, seven nephews, and one niece.
How does that feel? All of a sudden, you're part of a big clan, going
Well,
from the
they're,
only child with no children, no
yeah,
spouse, to now being part of a big family.
yeah. Now I'm buying a lot of clothes. What I'm doing, I'm sending baby T-shirts to this kid and T-shirts to that kid, and I bought a little jogging outfit for the baby. That my younger brother has a baby, and I've been I've been going to the store buying things for people as gifts.
Is
So
that
and
strange for you?
they, they are, yeah, it's sort of what I envisioned when I thought about finding my parents. I was excited about finding my parents, but I was a little bit more excited about the idea of having brothers and sisters.
And you're not just like anyone. You have a different identity than most people, both publicly and probably even privately, right? The way we view ourselves and changes because of the role we have to play in this world. So did your family know about you? Because Buffalo is not a huge town, like with a lot of people. It's not a small town either. But did they know about you? And how has that impacted the relationships The new
Well, they
release.
didn't know me prior, of course. They they had I think one or two of them had attended one of my shows,
Wow.
not knowing that I was related to them.
Yeah, they go,
But
that guy looks like us, but we don't know why.
yeah, yeah. No, I don't look starkly like either my mother or father in particular. Like I got
Wow.
I have my mother's nose and my father's ears, or stuff like that. Um, but it has been a source of a little bit of anxiety for me, because
Sure.
I'm a little worried that I'm such a bomb going off, being an opera singer. Because my father, he uploaded the DNA, then he realized that I was his son, and he went on YouTube and he started to watch videos of me, and he saw me singing, with Julius Rudel at Avery Fisher Hall, with the Tucker
Mm.
Gala, and all that stuff. So he talked to me the next day for the first time I spoke to him, and one of the first things he said to me, he goes, "Son, you got a voice."
How did that make you feel coming from him?
Well, great, and even more so because he had a failed arts career for 10 years. He was in a play when I was born, and he went to New York to try to be in movies. De Niro was his roommate for a while. He was friends with Dustin Hoffman and Mia Farrow and all these people. He almost got into Midnight Cowboy, but John Voight got the role instead of him. And he's done Shakespeare, he's done musicals and all that, but in the mid 70s he stopped, and he got a job with the correctional, with the state, and he got a pension, and he had children and a wife and a children and all that. So he looks at me and he said, "My son did it.
Wow.
My son went to Lincoln Center. My son was awarded. He has had an art career that I did not have." So, and even my mother recognizes it, because she remembers that my father tried to be an artist. So she says, "Wow, you finished where your father left off."
That is incredible. And that must
Yeah.
be really reaffirming, because I think as artists, we go through the process of trying to figure out, and at different points, we continuously try to figure out why we are doing this, because this is not an easy journey. Even if you're successful, it's not easy. So we have this continual pondering of why are we doing this, right? So now having that moment of connection with your father and having him share this with you, how has that affected
Well,
the way you
I
perceive
mean,
those bits?
the odd thing of it is that I've been singing opera for 25, 30 years. And then the year 2020 was a year where I was making the effort to take a step back from opera,
Hmm.
and try my hand in Hollywood. So I moved to Los Angeles. So I actually joined Central Casting. I was auditioning for plays. I got a call back for Witness for the Prosecution for the Charles Lawton role,
Exciting.
and I was doing theater auditions, television commercials. I got into an episode of 9/11 with Angela Bassett.
Wow.
I was a background actor sitting there having a wine, talking to somebody. So
Hmm.
I was just starting in February to get
Wow.
to get some traction and to get started, and then the virus came.
Right.
But the point of it is that then a month later I meet my father, and he is an actor, and he gave me a book on acting when I met him. And this is the first time I've ever had monologues prepared. Like my
Wow.
whole life, I prepared a Shakespeare monologue, and I prepared a monologue from a Frank Capra film called The Lost Horizons.
Wow.
And I was doing that when I was in Los Angeles. So all of a sudden now I have a father who can teach me about acting right when I'm trying to act, and it's just so serendipitous.
Well, that's the exact word that came to my mind. The
Yeah.
serendipity of this all, and the last week's conversation with friends with my friends Kristen Samuelson. She went into acting in her 50s. She was an opera singer for a long time. Then she decided she wanted to go into acting. And one of the things I think that she really enjoyed was, in opera, after a certain age, especially for female singers, it just gets to be really hard. But as an actress, contrary to people's stereotypes, she realized she could play her age group better than most other people because she took care of herself. And recently, she became an award-winning actress, and in the past 15 years or so, and she just it's a brand new craft. She had to learn how to do this, even though she's been on stage for a long time and she's acted on stage for a long time as an opera singer. She had to learn
Hmm.
how to do this differently. And she just produced her own movie, which has been making the circuit for the film festivals and winning best films. And she ended up being she ended up writing for the film herself and winning as a writer and won the best actress 8 times with this. And it's just I think I really admire what you're doing. And I think this is really something like something that just happens at the right time in your life with a connection with your father, with the way the world is changing. Because I find that even with classical music, even with live performance, we are now doing more and more live streaming versus in a theater, which can be a plus, could be a minus, can be a plus, but we are all becoming um, artists who are in front of the cameras, who are on screens, versus in the past, if you're an opera singer, unless you become one of those people who are broadcasted on a regular basis, we're stage performers, we're live stage performers. Things have changed. So now it makes sense for you to go into this other parts of who you are as a performer and then to discover that connection with your father. That's
Mm.
incredible.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there who are sort of opera snobs who think that an opera singer, they got to wear the cravat and they got to, act like an opera singer, and that's all they should do is opera. I even doing the pop music that I'm doing. So when the pandemic started, I was just starting to learn the Logic program with my
Oh yeah,
iMac.
yeah, yeah. Right, right.
So then over the past 6 months, I'm just finishing my second pop CD, All of Us, which is a statement on what's happening in the world as well. And I feel so liberated that I'm doing it because it's my lyrics, my music, and all that. I'm
Exactly.
trying to be, people say it sounds like music from the 80s or the 90s. I'm trying to be in the 2000s as best I can. But
People you are,
the
you
one
know?
danger of it is that I'm singing with a pop voice as opposed to my operatic voice. And people, like, I've said it to some singers that I've worked with, and they said, I didn't know that you could do that. And when I first heard it, I didn't know it was you.
It sounds good. I listened to it. It sounds really good. I'm so glad
Thank you.
you don't sound like an opera singer when you do that genre because that's the last thing we really want to hear as listeners, right? Even as opera singers, when we listen to pop music, we don't want to hear somebody who's in between,
It
right?
sounds horrible. It's just
Yeah,
not
I know.
right.
No, it
But
is not right.
I was a soprano first. When I was a boy, I was a soprano, and then I was a pop singer. Then I started singing choral music.
Mm.
Then I became an opera singer. So for opera is the fourth type of singing that I experienced in my life. I had three other kinds of singing, and then I'm a coloratura basso,
Oh, how
like
wonderful is
Raimi,
that?
right? And the reason I can do coloratura like nobody's business is because I sang coloratura when I was 8 years old in the Messiah as a soprano
Right.
soloist, and I learned how to move the epiglottis the
Mm.
right way to get.
Right,
So
right.
everything comes from the before. So when I sing pop music, I'm singing with a voice that I sang with when I was 15 years old.
Isn't that wonderful? Feels whenever I do things like that, I feel like I'm reconnecting with a part of myself that is much more direct, much more pure, without affectation, and that is just something that is honest, right? It's not
Hmm.
created. It is just something that's expressed, and I think sometimes we miss that.
Mm. But there's so much music that moves me. Again, these opera snobs. I have friends who just won't listen to pop or rock. I love progressive rock. I love 70s rock, 60s Rush, Pink Floyd, uh, Yes, Asia, all that stuff. I love that stuff, and I went to concerts, and I still go. I've seen Rush about 8 times in my life. I go to see these. I went to the Wall. I went to see Roger Waters and all that. So this is the kind of stuff you can't be embarrassed with that. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing that is not artistic about a lead guitarist with an electric guitar going crazy, because
Right.
that is an amazing ability. Jimi Hendrix and David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, these are phenomenal musicians. These are artists. These are not jerky kids with crazy hair. You know, that's what the opera snobs think. You know, oh, these are artists, man. You
People,
know, and they're
yeah,
just as
exactly.
inspiring. I've been, you
It's
know, when I'm tired of working and memorizing an opera, I sit down. I don't listen to opera when I'm relaxing. I listen to Pink Floyd.
right, right, right.
So, you
Yeah,
know,
I know, right? It's I think at the end of the day, we're people, we're human beings, and we should be multifaceted. We should have more than just one color to our life. Otherwise, how do you live? You can't, right? Yeah, and so I would, I could just talk to you forever. This is a fun conversation, and but we have to come to an end for now, and we'll hopefully have another conversation sometime in the near future. And so I know I'm getting some clips from you, which I can include so people can hear you singing. I would love to be able to include some of your opera singing and some of your recent pop singing so people can hear different parts of Valerian Ruminski, right?
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
my pop persona is impresario, so that when the album
right,
comes out, it's by impresario, and you
right.
got to
Which
do a
is
little
kind of,
digging to know that it's Valerian Ruminski, because I don't use my name.
right.
But I'll send you a clip from one of my new songs, and I'll send you a clip from some of my recent opera recordings, and you can use both of them.
That'd be so
Uh,
awesome. And then thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule because I know you're traveling back to California and this is your last day in Buffalo. You're meeting your parts of your family for the first time, and I feel honored that we happen to be connecting and having this conversation during this very week. I think it's very special.
and the great thing is, I just had some chicken wings, buffalo chicken wings.
Buffalo
So I
chicken
was,
wings.
yeah. That's I came home to experience the Buffalo food groups, and one of them is chicken wings, and the other one is fish fry on a Friday, which I had.
There
So,
you go.
all right. So we will talk
No
soon,
regrets. Yes.
and I wish everybody to stay healthy and wear their mask, and we're going to get through this,
I
all
love
of us.
this. All right. Thank you so much. All right.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
A million people walk the city streets. They walk alone at night, and one of them is me. I have no purpose, I see no light. The only meaning is neither wrong nor right. So everybody is nobody to me. No love or hate, just someone that I see. I'm very troubled, I need a place to go. The only problem is I don't know where I'm going to. Maybe you do. And the one thing I know that for sure is in no need of review. I don't know where I'm going to. Maybe you do. flow and so